Okay. The screen is visible. Okay, great. See. Now, all these certification systems, including GRIHA, so they are also responsive to the climate. So all types of buildings can get certified in this, meaning day use buildings as well as 24-hour use building. And there are different benchmarks, especially in GRIHA. We have different benchmarks depending upon which climate your building is getting built into. Okay, and there are mandatory clauses as well as there are voluntary clauses, right? So I think Professor Prasanna, you may have to mute your speaker. There is some disturbance. Okay, thank you. So there are mandatory clauses in every certification. Now, in certain certifications, they give points for mandatory clauses. In GRIHA, for example, points are not given. Mandatory is mandatory. You will not get points for it. You score points for doing other credits which are non-mandatory. So for example, under site, we have few mandatory clauses, which is, it's very important when you are doing a sustainable development, it should follow the master plan. Yeah, it should not go that, your layout is for, commercial while you are building a residential, or your layout is an agricultural land while you are doing an industry there. So it's very important that your project, your brief should be as per the development plan or the master plan. Tree cutting is, like a strict no-no. But if you cannot avoid cutting trees, it is mandatory that you have to plant in 1:3 ratio. So for every 1 tree cut, you have to plant 3 trees. Surface parking should not exceed the building bylaws, because a lot of times people end up into, excessive surface parking, which ends up into urban heat island, which is the cause of higher, or the increase of the air temperature of the microclimate of our urban areas. So limiting to what the building bylaw says. And outdoor lighting especially has to be, because there has been observation in the country that a lot of wastage of energy used to happen. Now there has been, of course, a lot of awareness, but that 100% of outdoor lighting have to be on control based upon the amount of outdoor levels, lux levels are available naturally. Under health and well-being, the National Building Code has to be followed for construction safety and hygiene, and all measures given in the National Building Code for preventing air pollution during construction have to be followed. In terms of energy, because GRIHA was developed, by the practicing architects involvement, who have been practicing passive architecture. It was a very strong recommendation, and now this recommendation has even come into the Energy Conservation Building Code, that the window to wall ratio should not exceed more than 60%. It was not there earlier in the ECBC 2007. Now it is there in ECBC 2017. The same ratio they have followed what is being recommended in GRIHA. Daylight, a very good source of energy that we have in India. A lot of Western world countries and higher latitudes that do not have this resource. We have to optimize. GRIHA gives a lot of emphasis on daylight integration. Right, over design of artificial lighting has to be avoided. So again, that is a cause of a lot of internal heat gains and energy consumption. Compliance with the code ECBC is a mandatory. That is the only way that our country will go towards energy security. Minimum 1% of connected load of HVAC and lighting from RE. Again, this is only for non-residential projects. And an audit of the resource consumption is a mandate. Unless you get your building audited after 1 year of occupancy, your building does not get certified in GRIHA. And water quality has to be met as per BIS standards. Plus, building water demand should be reduced by at least 25% from the benchmark. So we had also done, quantifications, based for every tool we would have, in fact, quantifications done, for energy, for water. So because you now know that you have to, if it is 5-star, GRIHA 5-star, if we have a benchmark of, suppose, let's say 90 units per square meter per annum, and 5-star building means 40% reduction from this benchmark, we can quantify how much savings we can do. So if, so we had quantified at a particular time that if once, 10 million square meter of in India buildings are Griha 5-star, then one can power other 100,000 homes. We would have so much of savings, and we could meet water demand of another 22,000 homes. Plus, it would mean 6 megawatt of rooftop PVs would be installed. Yeah, so it is very good resource of quantifying the savings that one could have. Very quick, for you to see the kind of architecture which these certified buildings have shown. So these are already built, already being occupied. This is a government building in Pune, where passive architecture, the louvers, the envelope was completely designed as per the sun path of Pune. This is IIT Kanpur, very well designed in the IIT campus, Griha 5-star project again, and meeting 10 to 20% of its energy demand. Also, it was not a net zero building. See the kind of quality of light. It is glare-free diffuse daylight that we look at, and this is all possible, of course, because these certifications push the building clients and consultants to do either hand-based calculations or software-based dynamic simulation, so that you can predict the kind of daylight levels you would have, the kind of energy consumptions you would have. This is Suzlon Vanat project in again Maharashtra, where there is double screening given, so as to cut the heat gains, but at the same time integrate the light levels. This is again inside of Suzlon Vanat. You can see the openings are being divided into two parts. So you have a vision window and you have a daylight window. Hareda was one of the first actually public sector building which became a net zero building. Now look at the EPI, or the energy performance index, that we talk about, which is 17 units per square meter per annum. This is a very, very low EPI. And if you have a very low EPI, that means you have really optimized your building design in terms of its passive architecture, in terms of its building envelope configuration, and the building would have very less consumption for lighting and for cooling. This is what it shows. And when you have numbers lower than 30 units per square meter per annum, for example, it becomes much more economically viable to make these buildings net zero buildings, because then the renewable energy becomes economically viable, yeah, once the demand is reduced. So it is all in the hands of the architects in the first stages, where you have to optimize the design. Now, this was one of the first central government's project, which was a net zero project. Here also, if this is in the bang in the center of New Delhi, and it is again a Griha 5-star project. Net zero by having, of course, it's it looks humongous, but then they have on-site RE installed to meet the energy demand of the building. It is the MES building in Delhi, and look at again the EPI, which is 24 units per square meter per annum. Several corporates, ITC, IFC that we've been working, Infosys we have been working with, have shown a lot of commitment. Even if these buildings, they are, if they are certified, not certified, some of the corporates in the country are truly, TCS, there are some of the developers out there truly committed towards the environment, and when they apply for certification, that really helps them to certify and give them that branding. So here also, if you see, it's not a net zero building. Here the EPI is 51. This is, I always show this building because it is really a building which is a showcase, in South India. So this is Terry's building in Bangalore. This building is, it consumes almost 1/8 of an office space, which would consume of the same. So we are about 3,000 square meter built up area, but the building is fully daylit throughout the day, and naturally ventilated, except for two spaces, which is a seminar hall and and the auditorium, which of course, because of the more number of people, due to several reasons of indoor air quality, you have to air condition those spaces. But the entire office otherwise is naturally ventilated. You can see here, the way the skylights have been designed, which is based upon the latitude angle towards the north orientation. Similarly, openings have been given to enhance stack effect, the quality of light in our Kerry building in Bangalore, where it's visually very, very comfortable. Occupants' comfort levels, productivity is very high because it's fully naturally ventilated building. Fortis hospitals were one of the few first hospitals who got certification, in early 2000 when Griha was evolved. In fact, when Griha was called as Terry Griha, from that time, Fortis and then AIMS and all these series of hospitals started getting certification because they saw a huge operational, in crores reduction in their operational costs because of the optimization of their lighting and HVAC design. There is not much in these hospitals that one can do in terms of envelope optimization. Of course, that is there through insulating and all, but there is a huge scope for lighting and air conditioning. Then this is HUL's development center in Mumbai. Again, this was a very interesting project. This project, they had almost, it was warm and humid. So warm and humid climate zones are more critical, to address even when we are doing certification. So this building was completely open from inside, meeting its natural ventilation mode for all the transitional spaces, for all the circulation areas, as well as natural daylight from inside. So it was an inside open building. I'm sure Chitra Vishwanath would have shared her project, which is highest certified, the Govardhan Eco Village. It's truly a bliss, I would say. Whenever you get a chance, one should definitely go and visit this place. Completely designed, sustainability to its core. It's a part, it's in the blood of the system. It is like that. So whether it is architecture, whether it is placement of buildings based upon the hydrology of the site, location of water bodies, depending upon, the topography. And so everything is, just net zero, sustainable building where they do not depend anything from outside. Yeah, with bigger openings, huge overhangs to achieve comfort even in the humid climate zone of this location. And then you can also, it's not necessary that you have to have bigger buildings only. You could always have smaller footprints also, which get certified. So we have, for example, Swagriha in Griha, where, smaller homes, built up areas which are less than 2,500 square meter. In fact, these buildings do not even need a consultant. You can just register, as an owner, and you can follow guidelines. You can commit. You can show how you have adopted it through an online portal, and you get certified. This was one of the teachers' house in Dun School. So we very strongly feel that all these certification systems, including Griha, have been a change maker in the building industry in the country. Now, I see that it's almost going to be 11 o'clock, and Professor Prasanna, if you can help me with this. I had about, I think, I'm actually just halfway down. So I don't know, should I stop here? You feel this is good? Or I had actually a Griha, quickly to showcase all the credits which are there, so that the participants are aware on the overall objective of every credit. Can I take maybe half an hour extra?
Yeah, please, you may.
I'll try. Okay, I had told Professor Tino 1 hour would be less, so I'll try to be as fast as possible. Okay, so yeah, so I will just, would like to show you some noise which is coming. So in all the certification systems, you register, you would have orientation workshops, and then you would have to submit your documents. There are also evaluation checks and verification checks that happen at site during construction. And then finally, after you submit all your documents, you get a provisional rating, and then you get a final rating in Griha is always given only after 1 year of audit. Okay, now as I had told, there are credits which are distributed in all the phases of the building: design, construction, operation, maintenance. I'm just going to skip filling. So all building typologies, whether it is hospital, airports have also got GRIHA certified now. High-rise buildings. Yeah, it's a star base. So now you could have silver, gold, platinum in IGBC or LEED. In GRIHA it is star based rating system, and as I had said earlier, the more the points, the higher the star. So let's look at site. At site, as I had told earlier, it's mandatory. It has to be as per the development plan. You start getting points if you have a brownfield site. It is an advantage because we are not then affecting a virgin site, or if it's a redevelopment project. Or if not, if you are, developing on a virgin site, which is not a redevelopment nor a brownfield site, then it will have to make sure that there are basic services available within 500 meters of walking distance from the site. Yeah, so that's site selection. That's the first credit. The second credit under site planning is on low impact design. So here we look at, various ways of seeing that, you have, because of majorly cooling dominating climates that we have, that how at site level various interventions, whether it is through landscape or through your orientation design, through your window design, how favorably you have designed to address to that particular city's climate, to that particular city's sun path diagram, to reduce your heat gains from your building envelope. That's site level itself. And implementation of SUDs, or sustainable urban drainage systems. Here we look at site level. Again, a very important aspect is that 90% of the rainwater we try for 100%, should retain within the site. It should not go outside because it's a resource. If we do that, we also reduce urban flooding. Yeah, these are the various strategies that we look at site. Another important, so it is climate responsive, site selection, SUDs, and then UHI, so urban heat island. We have to make sure for large developments, we also give a goal that when you develop a large campus or a township, you cannot increase your temperature of, after built up more than 2 degrees Celsius, what it was when there was no construction built. So the monitoring is done then, pre and post. But for individual buildings or smaller footprints, there is this credit on UHI where we talk about the hard surface quality. So wherever you have pavements or whatever you have, roofs, so all the surfaces which have the view factor to the sky have to be, more than 50%. So then you get maximum points. Have to have, either shaded, or should have perviousness, or should have high SRI, or the solar reflective index coating, so which is light in color. So so that there is porosity. We are looking at reducing the imperviousness at site level, and having more porosity at site level is what we look at. And also more of, so if you have light colored roof surfaces, then we reflect back the heat. So that is what is there at UHI level. Also with UHI, in this particular version, in GRIHA, we had segregated UHI to imperviousness factor, but they are saying the same thing. So the lower and these imperviousness factors, for depending upon building typology, is given in the National Building Code, which one has to follow. The lower the imperviousness factor, the better it is, because that would mean that your site has more porosity. It would still be very similar to what it was pre-construction. Okay, then we have along in the site section itself, we have construction management, because that also comes at site, where you prepare the site that you are not the cause of air and water pollution to the city or to the neighborhood, which means dust control measures, which means barricading your site and your construction area from the other neighborhood sites, which means your vehicles which are traveling in and out the site should be well covered. So there are several recommendations when projects get certified, which is given under these criteria, which have to be followed. So this is not adoptable. This is not adoptable. You have to have proper chimneys, if you have DG units, so that the whatever smoke is coming out is not affecting the immediate occupants. So spilling is not at all acceptable. So if this is the, if this is how the site is, these projects do not get Griha certifications. There are recommendations given. How do you barricade your site? How do you have to make sure that your wheels are cleaned, your materials are covered. Inside the site, there is proper stacking, there is proper management of done, where what material has to be stacked, where the hazardous material has to be there, how do you manage that? All that is given under the construction management criteria. Also under this comes preservation and protection of landscapes. Whatever what was the vegetation, as I was saying earlier, it's a mandatory. So whatever is orange is mandatory. You should not cut. If you cut, it is 1:3 ratio. You have to grow. If you grow more, if you preserve topsoil, you get more points. Again, topsoil is an important criteria in certifications because topsoil gets developed in several million years. So it's the very rich soil. When you do not have, when it's a greenfield site and we are planning to construct, you should try to remove that and stack it for later use when you develop your post-construction landscape. So that is when the topsoil helps the development of vegetation, of development of a landscape. One has to adopt staging, so you cannot just if you have 10 acres, you can't just remove everything from 10 acres. There has to be staging done so that it has least impact on biodiversity as well as on pollution, and also adopt methods to reduce movement of soil outside. So a lot of times our city drains get clogged because of the construction material which flows with the rainwater, in our storm drainage pipes, and that's why that is a huge cause of flooding nowadays. It is majorly due to construction material. Yeah, and so in all Griha and green building certified buildings, the soil of the site cannot go outside the site. So you have to have sedimentation tanks, you have to have trenches to make sure that the rainwater is not carrying the soil and the construction material outside the site. Then you have to adopt measures to reduce now water consumption. We will see later part that it is also at building and landscape level, but at construction level in site we look at that how do you reduce water consumption for construction, right? Here we don't have benchmarks. It's a qualitative criteria because still it's not being developed. And also last is management of waste, segregation of waste on site. So these are the construction management. So this is not acceptable. If it's all staggered everywhere, these trees will die. So if a site is like this, we will come to know that even if the trees are not cut, they will for surely die because the roots will get affected. Yeah. So this was example of IIT Kanpur, where we had the blue line, which is the site line. The red was the disturbed, so nothing was disturbed, so that staging was done. In fact, topsoil from here was removed and stacked here. And we had a physical and a water barrier. So there was a trench put here with sedimentation tanks in two lowermost locations, so that all the sediments, from construction settle down, and then that water goes out of the site. These have to be protected so that construction material is not stacked around them. Only then those trees would live through the, through the construction time. This is how, you end up having these trenches which take your rainwater to the sedimentation tanks for settling. Next most important criteria after site is on energy. There we look at efficiency in our appliances, we look at optimization of design, and we look at, finally is the EPI, after complying with all the codes, having the best of the design, the benchmarks that we look. So these all help us in reducing the demand. And we have RE systems installed. That's the supply system that we're looking at. So the complete, credits are revolving around these two things. How do we reduce the supply and demand from the RE? Okay, now for air-conditioned buildings and for naturally ventilated buildings, there are a bit of a different criteria and requirements in Griha. So that, but the best part in Griha is that For naturally ventilated buildings, there is a lot of advantages that they get if one shows that they are achieving thermal comfort but are still meeting the benchmarks, So ECPC is a mandatory requirement. We have given thresholds that depending upon climate from the building envelope, you cannot have heat gains more than these benchmarks. So, moderate climate, for example, the outside is not so, adverse. And that is why this is also more stringent. Okay, the criteria is also more stringent. While in composite, it is more tougher. The climate is extreme. So it is 40 watts per square meter. This is the building heat gain which is acceptable, right? If you can prove through simulations based upon what you have selected for your building envelope, you get points. 100% of outdoor lighting have to have the luminous efficacy which is given by defined by Griha for all the outdoor lamps. Then EPI has to be met, that's mandatory. And once you start showing that I am 10%, 20% lower than the benchmark which is given for your building, for your climate by Griha, then you start getting points. 50% from benchmark, you get the highest points in Griha. These are the benchmarks that, they keep on changing. So now from 1st January 2021, we have a new set, which is very similar to this again. There are few differences, but majorly, one is looking at if it is a daytime occupied building, your building cannot consume. Moderate is very small area in our country, but it is this 90. So your building, if it is consuming less than 90 units per square meter per annum, only then it can get certified under Griha. Now, this is very easy in a naturally ventilated building because the consumption is very less. So automatically the consumption comes like 30 and lower. But then the challenge is that in Griha, you have to also show that those naturally ventilated buildings are achieving thermal comfort defined by National Building Code or ASHRAE Standard 55 for more than 90% of the time. Only then you get your certification. Yeah, so it's a mix of both. You can air condition your building, or you can have low energy strategies, cooling strategies, but you have to have, this is the benchmark, which we are following nowadays. It is 90 units per square meter per annum. And in our experience, it's very easy when if you are integrating several low energy cooling strategies, less than 45, which is, more than 50%, is easily doable if rightly designed passive architecture and rightly designed. So yeah, but there are, of course, different benchmarks. If it is a 24-hour occupied, hospitals cannot look at this kind of a number. These numbers are for daytime occupied buildings. And for, residential buildings, there is a different benchmark. Yeah, so these benchmarks also keep on updating in Griha website. You can always, you can go and visit. Yeah, I have already talked about this EPI. Now, renewable energy. So again, in Griha, because it was adopted by the Ministry of New and Renewable Energy, for all the non-residential buildings, except for residential buildings, it is a mandatory that certain percentage of the energy demand is met through RA. Okay, and of course, if you increase your percentage met, then the number of points also increase. Another criteria under energy is, and this is a mandatory criteria, so you do not get any points in Griha under this. This is to select low ozone depleting potential materials, which means that all your insulation, all your refrigeration systems have to be CFC and HCFC free, which is now the awareness is there. Nobody uses insulation and refrigerants which have CFC, HCFC free, because they have ozone depleting potential. And also all the fire suppression systems have to be halon free. Yeah, so this is mandatory. Now, after energy comfort, so as I said, it becomes easy, for naturally ventilated buildings to get marks there. But then the next criteria is on comfort, where daylight of course, it is a mandatory that you have to have daylight integration in India, and there can be several ways which are given. It could be, it could be manually, or it could be through your simulations. It could be DA, UDI, DF. There are several methods nowadays that you can. Everything is acceptable. Super ECBC method, where we are looking at between 100 lux to 2000 lux, so that we have good uniform daylight levels. So it is mandatory in Griha to achieve daylight integration for at least 25% of spaces. As I said, it could be for manually, one could do, or through simulations. Artificial lighting also, design has to be NBC. Again, it's a mandatory criteria. And to to remove glare, minimum uniformity ratio that has been prescribed in Griha is 0.40. Okay, and then this 11.1.3 talks about thermal comfort. So it is mandatory that the project has to demonstrate, and this is possible mostly through simulations. Yeah, so you have to use simulation engines like Design Builder, like ATAS. You can use Transys, IES to show that the indoor conditions of your building are meeting ASHRAE 55, or NBC adaptive comfort models that are described. And then there is one more criteria under this comfort, which is on acoustics, which is on noise level. So this is basically, if you are aware that there is some source of noise outdoor, you have to make sure that whatever building typology you're building, as per NBC, the indoor noise levels have to be within the limits. And then in the audit, this is checked. Maintaining an indoor air quality is also part and parcel of the energy performance criteria, where again, this becomes very critical and important for naturally ventilated buildings, which is given a lot of emphasis in Griha, because here comes the picture of, so you cannot, so for example, some schools want to get certified. You cannot just get, if you are bang on the road and there is a lot of pollution and dust, those buildings cannot get just certified, because those students, those occupants would definitely have some respiratory problems. So it's important in Griha that you have to show that your indoor air quality meets the pollution control board standards for PM2, which is particulate matter 10, and particulate matter 2.5. The kind of ppm that has been defined by CPCB has to be addressed. Yeah, only then you get points. And of course, you get other points if you have monitoring systems to monitor your CO2, temperature, RH, and have them all in control so that people inside are comfortable. So this criteria especially becomes very important for naturally ventilated spaces. Then there are other indoor air quality related criteria, and these are common through all the certification systems. Yeah, these are just common. So you have to adopt, you get into many new buildings or newly done interiors, and if you get a lot of those vapors that irritate your eyes, you feel headache, or you feel respiratory issues when you smell such new furniture. So those you would never get in a green building, because in green buildings you have to ensure that all your interior finishes, the resins, the sealants, the adhesives, the fevicols that are used, they have low or zero VOC. Yeah, and they cannot use urea formaldehyde at all as a bonding resin. And these limits, again, when projects get registered, these limits are defined by Griha, by IGBC. What are the limits? What are the levels for various interior paints, for adhesives, for sealants, are all defined in the certification. That we complete, energy, comfort, and sight. For water, now again, like in energy, we had the demand side and the supply side. In water, at construction, we saw that there was just a qualitative criteria that would give you various recommendations to reduce your water demand at construction level by using various admixtures or gunny bags. But at building level, when for your site level, it is here in the water section. So we look at landscape water demand, we look at building water, and then construction water we look in the site. And we have to see that all the three, we reduce the demand while we increase the treatment and recycling of water plus rainwater harvesting. So always our aim is kind of achieve net zero, reduce the demand and do the supply through sustainable sources is always the agenda for all certification systems. Now, how do you reduce the demand? So at building level, it is pretty straightforward that one has to use, very, very efficient faucets and fixtures, which is a common practice nowadays. It was not when these, certification systems had just come in early 2000, but now it's a common practice, I would say, and it's very, very easy, in fact, to achieve this credit, where, you have dual flush systems, 4 and 3, separate for solid and liquid waste. You have aerators in your faucets, and hence, where in the earlier conventional time, we used to have 9 liters per minute of flow. We are seeing during these COVID times that for at least 20 seconds, approximately half a minute, one has to have, you have to wash your hands. So it's water that is being used. So we have faucets now which are as low as 2 or 1.9 liters per minute flow rate. So so these are already available, maybe just a bit higher in cost, but if you do life cycle cost analysis, we've seen amazing results. I mean, one has to have water efficient fixtures and in place and treat water to reuse, because you really have a very quick payback due to your lesser dependence. If suppose, in cities like Bangalore where there is tanker water, so the payback period is very less if you have a net zero water building. So the consumptions, there are these spreadsheets given. I'm not getting into details right now due to time. And for landscape, now for landscape, it is the base case is a lawn. So lawns are the highest consuming species, and the same strategies are used across all certifications. So they are recommending native species, efficiency in your irrigation systems, and lesser lawn areas. If you follow the 3, you would end up definitely consuming lesser land or water for your landscape. So once you reduce your building water demand, your landscape water demand, you have to also meet so this has a mandatory criteria as well in Griha, that you have to make sure that whatever purpose the water is being used, it has to meet the BIS standards. And then finally, last criteria in Griha on water looks at the entire life, entire reuse and recycling and entire water cycle. And this table shows us how much percentage. So, the higher the, if it is like coming up to 100% water is reused, which means that either it is harvested or it is treated and reused back. And we are not depending at all, on non-sustainable sources of water, then those projects of course get the highest points. Yeah, so this table is also, so there are various, once you get registered, once you register your project, you will get all these calculators, which really makes the life of the consultant as well as the owners easy to quantify. And then if there is any surplus water, and if also the water table and the municipality bylaws are, supporting, then water recharge is also given a separate point in Griha, not in other rating systems. So sustainable building materials have, one has to again reduce the embodied energy is the criteria here. So it is given in various ways, use of waste like fly ash from our, thermal power plants, and there are various credits. So you can, really earn a lot. So you can earn up to 6 points in this credit, because waste, we want to see to it that we reduce our loads on our landfills. So if one replaces fly ash in the OPC, in the structural concrete, you use fly ash blocks, or you replace fly ash by OPC in your mortar, in your plaster, depending upon the percentages that is given in Griha, and also meet the BIS structural standards, you get points. There is also in building materials, so that was on, using waste to reduce your embodied energy, while there is a criteria which talks about construction material and construction technologies which can be used to reduce your building structures embodied energy. And again, there is a detailed spreadsheet and calculation methodology is given that either you can reduce your quantity of material or you can use a different technology or material. For example, in in this Chitra Vishwanath's Govardhan Eco Village, instead of fire burnt clay, when adobe is used, the embodied energy number is much lower in comparison to the base case. Yeah, so you can either show that there is a reduction in the quantity. So because the embodied energy is nothing but the quantity of material used multiplied by its embodied energy. So you can show either ways what is more efficient, what is consuming less energy, and prove that your structure is having a lower embodied energy. We have, so that is for the structure, that is for the block work and all. For interiors also, all certification systems have criteria to make sure that even the internal finishes and materials that are used are having low environmental impact. So that is so basically the trend is that they push clients and owners to use more local materials which have more recycled content in them, which are locally sourced, and also where the life cycle cost, whether it is cradle to gate till now in Griha, it could be cradle to cradle also later, as we advance, but it is the life cycle cost is lesser. The environmental impact of the life cycle of those products are lesser. All those products, when we talk about wood, it is more of a composite wood, not teak or or wood which are taken from these plantations like bamboo, like rubber, so which are not having a huge impact. And so all these products have been, there's a wonderful tool, in fact, which shows various types of products under various categories, whether it's floor or block work or roof or tiles, that you can see how there, this is by Griha. If you go on their portal, you can see this and also see the greenness of all the materials. So we are almost towards the end, where we are looking at the solid waste management. So this was there in the construction time also. So at construction level also, we have to see to it that the wastes are segregated, hazardous waste, and the waste can be recycled back into construction industry. They have to be segregated, and minimization of waste. And there are several guidelines also given that common practices which should be done to reduce waste generation during construction. That's at one level. Now there are different criteria and points given when it is during operation time. So it's important to, again, the basic principles, segregation of waste, and for that you have to have design the capacity of various bins depending upon the building typology, have storage areas, because we are all aware that on the same day, it does not go for recycling if it has to go outside the site. So you have to have a storage space defined and designed in your architectural design, and then tie-ups with the recycling, industry partners. So if all this is set, then you get all the points in this credit. And there is a separate credit under waste for treatment of organic waste. So whether it is for composting or for biogas generation, which could be either used for energy or for cooking purposes, depending upon what the campus is all about. So zero wet waste should go outside all the certified buildings. And then it is socioeconomic. So where we all, because it's important that it is not only that when we're talking about sustainability, that you're looking at the comfort of the occupants, we're looking at global climate change aspect, but it is also important that we look and take care of people who are building, people who will also be the maintenance people who will be operating. It's important that their health, their safety is also taken care by. Then only it's a true sustainable development, right? And so it is mandatory here in Griha that one has to follow all these safety measures which are given in NBC. One has to give hygienic working conditions, sanitation facilities, drinking water. All this is mandatory, and above this, if a creche is provided for children, because this is what was observed, that children get into wrong deeds otherwise, if parents are busy. So if there could be a creche facility where the children are also involved in doing certain activities, then those projects get additional points. And as I had said earlier also, because in India, it's not a common practice to have all our buildings, universally accessible, So it is not mandatory, but, you get points that if your building is designed so that it will be used by people who are differently abled as well. And again, one has to follow the NBC. So as you know, so all these certification systems, you do not have to refer to other codes, to other standards. It's one document which helps you comply to all the important critical issues which are required, for sustainability of a project. And under social aspects also, so dedicated facilities for service staff. So they should have their separate resting rooms, separate washrooms, and numbers are also given in REHA. Increasing environmental awareness, under socioeconomic aspect, you get points if the project is helping spread environmental awareness. And finally, this is the last section. For all certification systems, it's about monitoring and validating and making sure that whatever the design was done, the construction was carried out, the operation of the building through its life is also the same. Only then the building keeps on getting, the recertified again and again. So metering and monitoring is a very critical issue. It is in fact mandatory to have basic metering done. Basic metering is as per the following, where the sources are metered. So whether it is energy, so it is your utility grid, or if you have on-site renewable energy source, DG sets, at each building level, in your campus. And similarly for water, whatever are the source point, there have to be digital meters to be installed. This is mandatory for both energy and water. Whatever are the sources, they have to be digitally metered. Now you start getting points, which means that you are more committed and you also want to, be more aware of your resource consumption. Then you do extended metering. So when we look in energy, it means, inside the building also, I would like to know what is my air conditioning consumption, what is my lighting consumption, where there is more scope for, further making better, what is my UPS consumption, can I have a better server system, can I increase my efficiency? If I want to know that, how, I can be better, I need to know this further division. And so this is the extended monitoring that we call is required, and you get more points. Similarly in water also, so not only at source level, but at various supply points for irrigation, for building level, our apartment level, each apartment is metered in that case, or wherever is the HVAC, if there's a cooling tower, then what is the water consumption by your air conditioning units. So it is an extended metering. Now there is one more level. If you start doing smart metering, where it's hourly metering, where there are alarms. If your benchmark is increasing, maybe at a particular point during the day, during the peak time, air conditioning is running, equipments are running on the peak, maybe you may go ahead above the benchmark. So then there is an alarm system. So it is doing an hourly, and it is communicating, to the operating team that, we are, how away we are from the benchmarks, for example. So there is smart metering. And then you get maximum points if you also from the smart metering start giving your data back to Griha, for example, platform, because then what Griha is looking at, that if you have similar type of building typology. So if I have 10 hospitals which are in composite climate, and they can then see that, oh, Fortis is consuming this much while Max is consuming much higher. So what is it that we need to do? So then it really becomes something which is very, very smart and something which is quantifiable, and it really helps you become more and more resource conscious, and your commitment towards environment, and which helps you in reducing the climate change aspect. Yeah. So yeah, Infosys has been doing that, from many years. They have a center in Bangalore where they get their results are monitoring, whether it is outside India, Infosys campus, or within India, every hour, which system, which air conditioning, which chiller is consuming how much, they can see everything. So we need to have smart metering systems to, manage our resources well. O&M is again a mandatory clause in all certification systems, how the building has been designed. The operating team, the maintenance team has to be made aware. So there have to be O&M protocols. There have to be documents which have to be, handed over to the facilities team. And then the final assessment in GRIHA, this is different, is the final certification is given after energy and water audit, and also the solid waste system, plus the comfort. So the thermal, visual, acoustic comfort, whether my noise levels are within the limits or not, they are all monitored. What all can be quantified on site post occupancy are all measured, and only then the final certificate is given. If projects do anything beyond we just saw, they get innovations in all certification systems. That I end my session. Thank you so much. I would be happy to take up questions.
Yes, ma'am. It was a good session. We have a lot of questions coming up. For that, I would like to request all the participants to turn your videos on so that the attendance can be recorded. All the participants, please.
Ma'am, can I ask a question?
Sure. Go ahead.
1 minute. Ma'am, can you opt to sharing? Stop sharing your... Yeah, please ask questions.
Yeah, I was just curious to know for Indian condition, GRIHA certification or IGBC certification, which is kind of more authentic, or I can say which is more easier, and like if any institute wants to do the green certification, what should we guide them, that get a GRIHA certified or get it IGBC certified? So according to you, what should be the guidance for the universities and institutes?
Sure, Professor Shweta. Thank you so much. So it's a challenging question for me because I was involved in the development of GRIHA. So Shweta, I see it is both. I would say IGBC and GRIHA both are equally good. Both have very similar agendas, similar objectives. Of course, so I'll tell you both the sides of it, right? Griha is little tough, I would say, sometimes when it comes to the stringency level in Griha is higher. So a lot of times, this has been through and through. A lot of times, more documents would be asked, which may be skipped in other rating systems because the stringency level in Griha is higher. But then the end product, you would be very satisfied. We had done this project in Tamil Nadu for CMDA, in fact, for the Chennai Municipal Development Authority, where they also wanted to look at all the certification systems. So though the documentation process is a bit more tedious and a bit more demanding, but the operational resource consumption in Griha is much lower than in any of the other certification systems available because of the benchmarking stringency that they have. That's one side. The second side is also, Professor Shweta, you should, depending upon the location where they are, you should also try to see if that municipality has adopted, any of the certification systems. Like, for example, if you are in Noida, let's say, then Noida has adopted both GRIHA and IGBC. So if you get, IGBC, Platinum and GRIHA 5-star, or you get either of them, you would get the same financial or, benefits, incentives from the municipality. So you could just check on that. Maybe in a city, you may have GRIHA and you may not have IGBC. That can, then, it gives you a lead, ki, let me go with GRIHA because I also have some municipality benefits. They recognize GRIHA. Or it can be other way around. It could be IGBC is recognized, but GRIHA is not recognized. In that way, you could go with IGBC, right? But yeah, so in terms of resource consumption, I have, they are available in the public domain also. If you go to TERI website on publications, you can look at CMDA final report, and you can see clearly that the Griha, energy, water, waste, all of the resources consumptions are much lower than the other rating systems.
Thank you, ma'am. One more question. We are into this process of green certification of our campus, and it is we are in Ahmedabad, and my university is known as Nirma University. So the basic question for us was, we were a green kind of campus, and we had everything related to when we started documenting. So it was easily, we are kind of almost silver and gold was the rating
Sure.
points. We are able to get that. Only thing, my discussion and my argument with my management was that we are kind of seeking to get a platinum certificate, but the cost which is IGBC is taking is kind of, because it is because we have 125 acres, so the calculation comes to kind of more than 7 lakh rupees for just getting a platinum certificate. My argument with my management was that we are already a green campus, we are already doing related to green. So why is this cost? Like, we understand there are not many overheads, and to sustain the offices of these people, these IGBC or Griha or all these lead organizations, to sustain, they need certain kind of finances. But then it took us almost 6-8 months to convince my management that why do you spend that extra 7 lakh rupees to get a flat? We are already green, so why do you want me to, kind of, because it's like, it's not that easy money. So there was a very big cash situation which we were facing.
Correct,
So
Shweta.
how
It is
do we
everywhere.
manage that?
It is not only you, it is everywhere. Everywhere it is the same, whether it is your university campus or whether it is a developer where, maybe the VP of the projects would want certification the highest, but the owner, who's owning that would say, I mean, why do we need? We can just, be, happy with the kind of architectural aspiration that we have. We will make sure that everything is efficient. Why do we need? So it's a clash of interest everywhere, Shweta, I tell you. But the only winning point, the most important winning point is that, see, however green you may be, Shweta, but do you know how green you are? Are you measuring it?
Yeah, we audited. No, but we weren't measuring it to the point of getting points, but we were kind of alert.
It's not only points. It's not only points, it's the benchmarks. So if I give you an educational campus, if I tell you that, for academic block, for library, for schools, for admin, this is the consumption level you should have. Are you lower than that? So once you get into that measurement, you should tell your management. You may not know, you give them 7 lakhs, or you will save crores of rupees, because you will not even know right now where you are leaking. But once the system comes into place, everything will be monitored. And then, of course, it's not only the registration cost, because there will be meters, there will be extra, appliances and controls and equipment that you would have to install. So you should be prepared for that extra cost. But then with that, your consultant or whichever certification body you will go, there would be also life cycle costs, which would be done. Yeah. So I would say, in fact, 7 lakh is a very small figure if you look at the entire picture. You have
No, that was no 7 lakh is just what you are going to pay, and
for the registration. Yes.
but then associated to get not many things, so it is like, it's a huge cost. And
so you have to talk about this measurement. You can only monitor and tell. So whatever is your bills right now, I don't know how many lakhs or crores you spend for, you know, your energy and everything. And if there can be, you know, you can just do, you know, ballpark, even 20% reduction from there because of XYZ recommendations that these things, you know, these certification bodies will tell us what will be the annual saving or monthly saving for the campus.
Yeah. Yeah, we
I
did
mean,
that because we only had 10% of the overall campus had LED lights. And while we started discussing and talking about this green, making our campus green and getting it certified, so parallelly the university admin people, they changed the overall life and they have started telling us they are saving a lot of energy consumption bills. So that is a very good sign which is coming from them saying, yes, ma'am, it matters now, and yes, we are actually saving money in energy consumption.
So yes, that's what it would be managed much better, and they can, you know, you can measure it very well for every, like this is only for lighting, you know, also for your fans, for your, you know, for all your equipments, for your servers, for everything it will be managed then. So
Yes,
at the end, it would be a huge saving. And, you know,
yes,
so saving is inbuilt and branding is also inbuilt. So your university, you know, it would be coming in the website of all these. So you see, it's also branding for the university, right? So you are also showing your commitment
it
towards
is
the
branding.
environment, and you are also attracting those kinds of students then towards you. Yeah, because if you commit, then you're also showcasing something which you would like to preach. Right. So it is beneficial from both the sides, I feel.
Because we started talking and then university decided that this should be a mandatory teaching in all the institutes. So we then started taking up urban ecology. So we just did not teach landscape design. We also included biodiversity, ecology,
Great.
and something similar started happening in civil department and electrical department and overall across the campus. So it's a good sign actually.
Nice. Nice.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so
Not
much.
at all. Not
Out of
at all.
time. Can we go to the next question? Yeah. Ma'am, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear.
Yeah, fine, ma'am. A few questions from the chat boxes. One of the questions was that you said about the Swagriha ratings for the residences. And in that you mentioned about the small residences actually, which was around 2,000 square feet and all. And looking at the context now, as myself, we are working on projects in which there are just family of 4, and we'll be mostly building like 5,000, 10,000 square feet of residences and all. So in those case, actually, I just wanted to ask, even if the building have a Griha rating, so does Griha have some sort of
I can't hear you. The Griha has?
I was just asking whether if there is a sort of justification, why does a family of 4 actually need a residence of 10,000 square feet? So there itself, there's a lot of energy actually we are which is not required, and then we are going for ratings. So I just all
Sure. So I feel it's very similar to what I told Shweta also, but it is at a smaller scale now. So see, of course, you would have inbuilt benefit of saving your energy, your water, right? And also your waste management, but you would be monitoring it. And if you have controls, you know, you would get an alarm, for example, you know, if suppose, you know, your geysers are on, or if there is any kind of leakages that are happening, you would get an alarm. So it is a way, it's a tool which is helping you, you know, be very, very conservative in your resources. It's helping you manage your resources. Of course, you may do it without it. Plus, you know, there have been municipalities like in Maharashtra, there are many municipalities which are giving incentives even for Swagriha projects. So there are property tax rebates which are given to homeowners who are going ahead, you know, because there is an additional cost which is invested. There is property tax rebate that is given. So it is a win-win situation. You know, you would be consuming less and hence your bills, you know, you would be saving in your monthly bills. Plus, you are getting recognized by your municipality through rebates in your taxes. So what certification is trying to do is create a market. At the end of the day, you see, everybody may not. So we have to create that market. So maybe 10% of the population may be aware that, yes, I want to build. But if we create a market through branding, through policies, you know, where municipalities start giving these rebates, it's a better situation.
Yeah. Ma'am, one more question. You said about the tree cutting ratio. If you are cutting one tree, we have to plant three. So one of the presenters in the last day, actually, he was against cutting of tree. He said that the biodiversity of that space is getting, so we can never reap. And
True.
we often see that in public projects like roads and all, there's a lot of cutting of trees. So is there any sort of this ratings or something for this public projects like roads and all? We have a lot of metro stations and many such buildings which go for ratings. Is there something for this sort of infrastructure?
So, okay, now there are 3 things that I would like to tell. One, there are WHO norms also, which are followed because I didn't cover GRIHA for large development, which is, you know, campus or township developments. So WHO guidelines says that one has to have 9 square meter of vegetation per person. 9 square meter of vegetation, green cover per person. Okay, now which is quite a huge, but then it is for campuses and townships and large developments. So, you know, cities and townships which adopt Griha LD, they follow this. Now, you know, cutting tree should be a no-no. And even in Griha, that is what has been prioritized first. But you see, when we talk about development, many times it may not be possible. So we have to, you know, we can't just say not possible. I mean, we can't say development not possible, right? World will not go like this. So we have to create then methods of, you know, how to be still be environment conscious, be respectful, but development has to go on. And that's why there are 2 methods which are proposed in Griha. One is transplantation. So for all these infrastructure projects, the first and 90% of the time, if transplantation is done well, you know, by authorities, by organizations who have an expertise in transplantation, not by just XYZ. People who know how to transplant, if it is done, the survival rates of those mature trees are very high. So that should be integrated in the municipality bylaws or infrastructure development, you know, bylaws of those cities. Last option is that 1:3, that if you are cutting, then through research, it has been proven that, you know,
Hello.
if you plant 3
ma'am,
trees,
I just wanted to ask, अपना application जो है वो AICTE approved है?
so 3 plants, if you grow,
AICTE.
then the survival may be that at least 1 or 2 will survive. That is why there is this 1:3 ratio that's given. So there are all these
हाँ, but
layers that
UGC और
are
AICTE के
there.
भी वो होते, क्या बोलते हो?
I think Sahbaz, you have to mute yourself. I can't hear you from the co-host side. I can't hear you.
Yeah, ma'am. Yeah, ma'am. Yeah, now you can hear me, right?
Yes.
Yeah. One more last question. You said about the window to wall ratio, which should not be more than 60%, right?
60%.
So,
Yes.
right from BARC level, from the first year itself, most of us are trained actually to go for more into aesthetics and all. So, in those years, actually, I think from nowadays onwards, from the BARC level itself, when we speak about this form, function, aesthetics and all, this should be a major thought,
Absolutely.
right?
Absolutely. I agree completely. I completely agree. In fact, I
Yeah,
have
you
been
also
working.
mentioned, yeah,
Yes.
you mentioned that the design aesthetics of architects often doesn't go with this passive architecture. I think you showed one of the works of Christopher Charles Benenjo also.
Mm, mm,
He's
mm.
one of the architects who actually uh, actually have a both blend of aesthetics and this
Balance.
passive architecture. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Absolutely right. Absolutely right. And I completely agree, with the person who has, given this, who has noted this and given this comment, because you see, okay, so when we talk about efficiency, actually your window to wall ratio, if you look from visual, the visual aspect as well as the functional aspect of windows, which is view and to bring in the daylight inside, right? Throughout our research that I have been involved for last 15 years in theory, we haven't seen that we need more than 30% of window to wall ratio. Actually, we do not need more than 30% at all. For those architectural aspirations only, this has been increased to 60%, which is a limit, because anything beyond a particular sill level, let's say 700 or 750, it only adds to additional cooling load, your heat gains. It does not contribute anyway to your visual or thermal comfort at all, right? So that is the reason of deriving the 60%. Yeah, if we give a sill which is anyways below that is of no use, from those two aspects, from there the 60% has been derived. And yes, I completely agree. And in fact, we are developing on certain proposals where we are planning to completely revamp, the architectural courses in various universities, where sustainability should be an integral part from first semester, so that when you are being, taught, for example, building construction, or when you are being taught history of architecture, you know what is right or what is more sustainable, or you have those like architectural design repeats every semester, sustainability also should read every semester, linking your other courses that you are being taught, so that it becomes an integral part. Otherwise, this is what is happening right now. Your aspirations are different, what you've been taught, and suddenly in some 7th or 8th semester, you'll be having, or in 4th semester, climatology, and that's the end of it. So this has to go through a revamp.
We'll have the validatory session.
Okay.
5 minutes.
Sure.
Participants, we'll have a break for just 5 minutes and
Good afternoon, everyone.
Not audible. Think not audible.
Yeah, good afternoon.
Kill to unmute.
Sorry, you're on mute. You're not audible. Probably you're on mute.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes.
Good afternoon to one and all. Welcome to our valedictory function, and we've come to an end to the 11-day FDP program. I would now like to invite our HOD, Dr. Prasanna TK, to give a summary on the program.
The thing is also shut down if the webcam is open, especially on laptops. Either the board, architecture board,
Host, can you mute all other participants?
Hello, ma'am, Prasanna ma'am. We'll start with the summary now. I welcome you to please give a summary on the entire program. Ma'am, can you please unmute?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Architect Mini Shastri, dear participants of this 2-week FDP on sustainable development for mitigating climate change, sponsored by AICTE, faculty of MES School, College of Engineering and School of Architecture, ladies and gentlemen, a very good afternoon and a warm welcome to the valedictory program. It has been a hectic 2 days. I know, fulfilling all the professional and personal commitments and investing around 5 to 6 hours per day in this program. I place on record my sincere appreciation and thanks to all the participants who took this journey along with us. There has been a progress in our understanding of sustainability from 15th of February when we started. Stress by the keynote speaker was on treading very softly on Mother Earth, and the last presentation on certification by architect Mini Shastri was to demonstrate how this treading softly can be empirically quantified. And the participation of this 2-week program, initially we had a whopping 160 participants, but over a period of time, many of them were not fulfilling the norms of filling up the attendance form or clocking in and so on. Now we have a decent 70 plus strength. So the participation, I'm sure, was based on the speaker list. And the selection of these speakers was done after a lot of deliberations by the internal committee. And we're happy to say that each session proved to be an eye-opener to a totally new dimension of sustainability. And we will know from the feedback, but as of now, we are quite sure that we were quite right in the speaker list. So, We at MES School of Architecture are humbled by the acceptance of each of these speakers, and all of us are very privileged to listen to them. A quick review of the summary of what we have gone through the past 15 days. We started the first session on 15th of February by Dr. Roshni Udyavar Yehuda on the title Understanding Climate Change, where she discussed causes and effect of climate change, major natural disasters and its causes, role and the role of building industry in that, and how we can climatically adapt and become more resilient by way of proper designing of buildings and planning. She had cited buildings all around the world, and it was the right start for the faculty development program. And the second session by Dr. Thada was on review of disasters in the past decade. And she discussed natural disasters across the country, effect of human activity to cause climate change, and the need for change in climate, human attitudes and actions, not only building and architecture, she also even how we live on a day-to-day basis and our reactions to small animals and plants, flora and fauna around us. She cited the spider as an example, and all of us who were swatting spiders till then, I'm sure that we'll be rethinking about it from now on. Then she also looked at various architectural studies and concepts of climate resilience and green structures and materials, and the various lessons which we can learn from nature. The afternoon session at 1 o'clock had architect K.T. Ravindran discussing on macro level policy making, vision and mission leading to climate change mitigation. And he discussed about sustainable urbanism and sustainable development goals and achieving how to achieve the sustainable development goals, and concluded with the Gandhian principle and sustainable development. All the three speakers on the first day concluded with the one or two quotes from Gandhiji. So it was a right start for the 2-week program. And on the day 2, we had Professor Neeraj Gupta talking about the social issues, lack of equity, the lack of equity as the major cause and for any kind of environmental damage, looking at the social issues. And he talked about social disparities in sustainability, man's attitude towards equality and sustainability, and examples of social sustainable index and gross happiness index being preferred over GDP. And again, he concluded with the Gandhian principle on sustainable development. The second discussion was by Dr. Pradeep Ghosh on economic development. Is economic development always at the cost of environment? What the title. And he defined both economics and sustainable, and brought out the relationship between these two, and discussed cost-benefit analysis of environment, Calder-Hicks principle in determining cost-benefit analysis, and valuing irreplaceable values. This session by Dr. Pradeep Ghosh totally was a new way of looking at economics, and brought in so many new theories, which I think all of us should pursue in reading and understanding better. The third presentation on second day, that is 16th of February, was by Meenakshi Umesh on sustainable living and circular economy. And she is a architect who has left the comforts of city of Mumbai and come and settle down in Tamil Nadu in order to pursue her dreams. And many of her statements was really soul-stirring kind of experience. Where she said, I didn't buy a piece of land. I took up possession of that land to take care of it. Those kind of things. And she moved from Bombay to Tamil Nadu in order to, because of the kind of impact she saw of poverty in actually social equity. I mean, I was quite moved by her presentation, and she talked about paradigms of social sustainable development, philosophical, psychological, physical, economical, and environmental, and steps to transform your life based on these paradigms. and alternate materials and construction technologies, which she proved with some of the case studies, which included her own precedents. Day 3 started with Dr. S. Srikumar talking about sustainable land management to mitigate and adapt to climate change. And he discussed human intervention on land and river flow patterns leading to natural disasters and natural disasters of the past and its causes and effects, and need for integrated planning for sustainable development. The second presentation was by Dr. Sujata Karve, who talked about environmental psychology and architecture, which again opened a new dimension into how we look at spaces and how we look at buildings and environment. And she talked about the basics or fundamentals of environmental psychology and with the principles of environmental psychology, and understanding human environment transaction levels as interpretive, operative, evaluative, and responsive. So, and how to enable pro-environmental behavior among the users. So, and among users and among everyone. The third session was by architect Lalit Kishore Bhatti on impact of climate change on settlements, problems and solutions. He did a case study of Oroville, they call it the village, Oroville development, and different activities of Oroville, architectural, social, environmental, and experiments and process of designing and decision making in Oroville. So anybody who has visited Oroville will definitely remember the impact it has on each one of the visitors. And his presentations definitely did justice to like being a part of or being able to visit Oroville. Therefore, had architect Prasanna Desai talking about creating healthy, hygienic, and humane cities by people participatory approach. And he talked about mobility and sustainability, and how mobility can be brought into cities, and how even in bigger cities like Pune and Mumbai, we can think about having pedestrian areas totally devoted for pedestrians, and issues and failures with current mobility patterns and need for change, and understanding climate and local requirement to design urban spaces. He did his case study of Pune street revitalization, which his office had done. And then the second presentation was by Professor Shalin Shingal on smart cities, performance of various cities in the circles of sustainability, and the importance of culture and sustainability, global and local challenges in ensuring sustainability, like poverty and how India is in SDA and so on, and resource efficiency, LCA tools, and the need and the process, and sustainable consumption and production, circular thinking, value proposition, and new type of urban development professionals with integrated skill sets which are required in order to cater to the requirement of sustainability. The third session on day 4 was by architect Sandeep Menon on sustainable landscape, and he brought in case studies from various parts of the world, and again it was all the 3 case studies which he presented were really pathbreaking, and it went on to like what we think about only water harvesting and various levels which we generally discuss in today's term, how it can be taken to further level like gas trapping and things like that was really an eye-opener. And the sustainable landscaping in urban areas, global examples, interpreting culture and need of the local people to design urban landscapes, and understanding local resources to design. Therefore, day 5 was started with Dr. B. Shashibhushan's presentation on sustainable sensibilities, a insight on practice of architecture, and how you have to be very self-conscious in order to make sensible architecture, social, cultural, historical, and ecological context, and need and interrelations, and integrated and multi-level approaches to decision making, and case studies done by his office in and around Mysore. So climate, ecology and culture, planning and designing and material and technology, which was brought out for these case studies. The second one was jointly presented by Dr. Komal Thakur and architect Harshal Dhanurkar on climate responsive architecture, on factors of climate, climate analysis in design, measuring microclimatic effect on site, sun and wind, introduction to and marsh and climate consultant for climatic data. And the third one, presentation by architect Chitra Vishwanath on site planning for sustainability, case studies, highlighted the importance of materials and technology and site planning and the process which is involved in all the selection of materials, the technology to be adopted, and what all planning techniques we use for the site. Traditional town and community planning, she brought out the importance of understanding them and putting them into practice wherever possible, and the water management in cities. The second week started with, that is day 6 on 22nd of February, started with the presentation by architect Sandeep Virmani on building sustainable communities. And this was again another presentation which totally not only looked at the sustainable development, but with respect to architecture, but in totality, how we have to understand various principles which the traditional communities were practicing to achieve sustainability. So he talked about alternate materials in construction in his case studies, involving and encouraging local and traditional artisans in design, and involving people participation in effective decision making, and empowering the disempowered and women sector of the society. He was also kind enough to share the pictures of his office, which has been done totally on sustainable practice, sustainable material technology. Then the second presentation on day 6 by architect Vinod Kumar, this was on conservation and sustainability. He discussed Kerala's climate and culture and the architectural tradition, and the planning and principles and architecture of Kerala temples and residences, and how we have to conserve these traditional buildings. I don't have to introduce architect Vinod Kumar. He has been the recipient of the UNESCO Awards twice in the past decade, one for the conservation of the great temple of Malappuram, and the other one in the temple town of Guruvayur. And he also discussed how local artisans and wisdom in building, because I know it personally because I've been visiting Padmanabhan temple in the 3 years or 5 years when the work was in progress. And many of these systems which had only learned, like slaking of lime and grinding of lime, and how buildings are brought down systematically and treated, the wood is treated and laid back. All this I was able to see over a period of time in reality. And need for conservation, and he also discussed the need for preserving, and how by conserving and preserving old buildings, we will be preserving our own culture. The third presentation was on restoration and challenges by Dr. K.K. Mohammed, and he talked about the Bateshwar group of temples, restoration processes, and the challenges which he had faced. On day 7, we had Ajit Gokhale presenting on water conservation and management theory versus practices and way forward. And he discussed the traditional and rural water conservation and management practices, and what are the later trends in Mumbai with regard to water conservation, and how effect of land from groundwater exploitation, how it can be mitigated by looking at new technologies and new methods and new processes. Impact of modern day industrial pollution on land and humans, and he brought out the issues in urban planning leading to water scarcity and waterlogging issues. And he also discussed the solutions that are possible in the near future. The second presentation was by Dr. Benny Kuriakos on indigenous materials and sustainability, who brought out the who brought out the importance of critical regionalism, the area in which he works. Dr. Benny Kuriakos also doesn't need much introduction. Anybody who has been to Chennai would have definitely visited Dakshin Chitra. It's one of the tourist spots in Chennai now, where they have reassembled some of the houses from southern part of India. And in the process, he also discussed laterite, the importance of laterite lime timber with case examples of various residences and how reuse and recycling of buildings can be done. Yeah. He also being the first one of the first disciples of Lord Baker, talked about sustainable vernaculism as brought out by Hassan Sati and Lord Baker. On day 7, the third presentation was on air quality and both indoor and outdoor by Dr. Sumit Sharma. And air pollution forming, he discussed about air pollution formations and impacts, sustainable development and air quality goals, and air pollution in various Indian cities and causes, and the criticality which we are facing in terms of air pollution, and the National Clean Air Program, which the government has initiated, and what are the policy initiatives for mitigating pollution. He also discussed about developing business model, prioritization of strategies, and use of low-cost forecasting tools in the strengthening enforcement and enhancing budgets in order to mitigate air pollution. And on day 8, we had Dr. Sunil Pandey discussing waste handling and management with a focus on healthcare sector and frameworks, stakeholders, rules and regulations, hazardous waste sources, unscientific disposal issues and impacts, landfill management, solutions to waste management. And the second presentation was by Dr. Neelkant Shinde on technologies for sustainable development for mitigating climate change in building and construction industry. We discussed sustainable architecture and technologies, technologies for passive and active building design and operation, and how the renewable energy of solar, wind, geothermal, biofuels can be implemented, what are the various technologies available and how they can be implemented. Day 6, the last presentation was by Dr. Sapan Tapar on energy audit and management. He reviewed global energy and the position of energy conservation in India and the role of energy audit, the need of energy audit and the various processes involved, and the energy management techniques, specific energy consumption concepts and challenges, and the business models which can be adopted. Day 9 and 6 had architect Ashika Sultana giving a hands-on building energy simulation, and she also brought out in the theoretical component need for theoretical building simulation for energy saving in building, different simulation methods and softwares, and energy conservation building code. And the training was done on eQuest, which is a free downloadable. So everybody was given the link earlier so that they could download and do a hands-on. Today's presentation by Professor Minnie Shastri discussed green building certifications to mitigate climate change through sustainable development. Again, it is in 1.5 hours. I think it was a real overview of actually whatever we had been discussing in the past 8 days and 2 days hands-on of various aspects, how it can be quantified. One session on how to quantify whatever we were discussing in the first 8 days. Various rating systems and with a specific focus on Griha, all the 30 criteria which were being discussed. So this is the summary of the 11 days of presentation we had. As I was telling earlier, we are extremely thankful to all the participants, many of them who have been with us throughout, with a very high level of commitment, very senior teachers from various colleges across India. I could see many of my old students from various institutions and current institutions participating in all the sessions, which really made me feel that it was really worth all the effort. Thank you all. Thank you all, the participants. The committee, I should also mention, even though there is a formal vote of thanks, I should say how committed both faculty and students have been, and this wouldn't have been possible without their commitment. And even when I was not able to travel to college on an everyday basis due to the current situation, they were there always trying to do whatever was necessary at that particular moment. and making the whole thing possible and seamless. I'm extremely thankful to all the faculty members who contributed, and all the participants who participated, and all the experts who were willing to share their expertise with all of us. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Now I would like to open the floor to all the participants to give any feedback. We have received some in the chat box.
You can just directly invite.
Few things. Is that fine?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Absolutely.
Hi, this is Professor Mahesh Bangad. I'm from BNC Pune, and I've had a long association with MES SOA already. But it's really a huge pleasure to be attending a 2 weeks long, well curated session. And this whole FDP has also taught me personally that the spectrum of sustainability is too high than my own knowledge, value of knowledge. And it is impossible to actually put it into 10, 11 days and learn about it. But the kind of speakers, the kind of expertise that was brought to the front and to all of us easily accessible was amazing. And I think the role MES SOA has played in this is worth all the applause. And speakers were fantastic, very carefully chosen, and the knowledge shared was immaculate. Prasanna ma'am, thank you very much for this initiative. And, of course, AICTE has always supported such activities, and I'm sure AICTE can be very proud of this initiative taken up by MES SOA. And Mini ma'am, thank you very much. It's always a pleasure listening to you. And the presentation was quite detailed out, and good that you extended it because those rating systems were really important to be understood. In fact, I was trying to relate it to one of my project immediately where I could use the social aspect, the children aspect, and stuff like that. So it's very, very good. Thank you so much. And all thanks to the organizing team, the young faculty members. They've been really, really strict teachers also with us as participants. They kept their time, they kept sending the right links, they supported us very well. And they took our exams also continuously. So it's been a total pleasure. Thank you so much for making us a part of this.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.